My name is Lisa Perry, and I'm 25 years old. That morning, at 6:30 a.m., my phone jolted me awake. Mom's name flashing insistently on the screen. Lisa, get to the house now. Her voice was sharp, urgent, leaving no room for questions. My stomach twisted with unease as I threw on a jacket and drove to my family's old house in Richmond. Eric, my fiancé, and I had spent months planning our wedding. Every detail was carefully chosen, from the Ivy House venue to the invitations we had already sent. My heart ached, anticipating the excitement of the big day. But the moment I stepped into the house, a cold dread washed over me. Mom stood rigid, arms crossed. Dad sat silently beside her. My younger sister, Shannon, smirked casually on the couch, like she had been expecting this moment. Mom's words hit me like a knife. We're not funding this circus. Shannon added, better luck next time. I froze. My dream wedding, the day I had envisioned for years, was unraveling before my eyes. They hadn't asked me. They had simply decided. My heart pounded, but I forced a calm voice. Understood. And I walked out. I wasn't going to beg. That morning, something inside me snapped. They had always tried to control me, from the career they forced me into to the choices I wasn't allowed to make. But I wasn't the girl who had once obeyed without question. They had no idea what was coming. Weeks later, their frantic calls flooded my phone, desperate for conversation. I smiled quietly and texted back, the circus is already full. I remember that morning vividly. The living room felt like a courtroom. Mom, standing by the fireplace, rigid and unforgiving. Dad, slouched silently in his armchair. Shannon, sprawled across the couch, smug and knowing. The tension was suffocating. Lisa, Mom's voice sliced through the room, cold and final. We're not funding this circus of a wedding. My breath caught. This wasn't a circus, it was my wedding to Eric, the man I loved for 3 years. We had planned everything ourselves on a budget we could afford. Eric, devoted to his non-profit work mentoring kids, was perfect to me. But to my mother, he was a failure. He's not good enough, Mom said sharply. No ambition, no status. You're throwing your life away. Dad nodded quietly, muttering, we've always wanted better for you, Lisa. Shannon laughed, tossing her hair. Better luck next time, sis. Her words were smug, cruel, and they stung deeply. I wanted to scream, to demand why they thought they could dictate my life. They had called the venue, the caterer, the florist, canceling everything without consulting me. My dream wedding was shredded. Why? I asked, voice trembling. Mom scoffed. You're too naive, Lisa. Eric's dragging you down. We're saving you from a mistake. Dad added, we know what's best. You'll thank us later. I pictured Eric, his warm smile as we picked out my dress, his quiet strength when I doubted myself. He was more than they'd ever see. Shannon leaned forward, smirking wider. Come on, Lisa. You didn't really think this would work, did you? I stood abruptly, the chair scraping the floor. You had no right, I said, locking eyes with Mom. She raised an eyebrow. We're your family. We decide what's right. That was it, the same control, the same arrogance. They had picked my college major, my career path, my entire life. And now my wedding. I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Understood, I said flatly, and I walked out. Their words burned behind me as I got into my car. But something had shifted. This wasn't just about a wedding. This was about my life, my choices. They had crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let them cage me any longer. The next morning, I sat in my apartment staring at an old sketchbook filled with dress designs from my teenage years. My passion for fashion, the one thing that made me feel alive, had been stifled by their constant control. I remembered pleading to attend design school, only to be denied, forced instead into a stable accounting career. Shannon, meanwhile, pursued her creative choices with Mom's full support. Flair, Mom called it. Flair. The word stung. Eric had been my escape, the person who saw me for who I really was, not the polished shell they expected. Every time I brought him to family events, the air thickened. Mom and Dad criticized him, questioned his job, and Shannon whispered, her eyes rolling. They never saw the man who made me feel free. I closed the sketchbook, the events of yesterday's confrontation replaying. It wasn't just about the wedding, it was every stolen moment, every crushed dream, every decision they had made for me. 4 years, I had tried to please them. But now I realized I could no longer live under their control. A few days later, I met Diane Cole, my lawyer, at her downtown office. Clutching the wedding contract, my hands still shook from the shock of my family's betrayal. Diane flipped through the documents. The cancellation notice has your signature, Lisa. But it's not yours, is it? I stared at the paper. My name was written in black ink, a clumsy imitation of my handwriting. That's not mine, I whispered. Diane nodded grimly. Someone had forged it, likely my family. They hadn't just decided for me, they had broken the law to erase my wedding. Her words hit me like a slap. Forgery, theft, deception. And then the thought struck me. Shannon's boutique had failed recently, drowning in debt. Had they sabotaged my wedding to bail her out? They had always favored her, celebrating her choices while crushing mine. My anger boiled, the betrayal sharper than ever. I left Diane's office with a stack of documents and a fire in my chest. My family had lied, manipulated, and possibly stolen from me. But I wasn't alone. Eric was by my side. Together, we would uncover the truth and reclaim what was mine. A few days after the confrontation, my phone buzzed unexpectedly. Uncle Stephen's name lit up the screen. I hadn't heard from him in months, not since he'd moved to Raleigh. His voice was low, hesitant. Lisa, there's something you need to know. It's about your grandfather's trust. My heart skipped a beat. Grandpa had always been a quiet presence in my life, generous but distant. I listened, gripping the phone tightly as Stephen explained. Before he passed, Grandpa had set up a trust fund of $250,000 for me, to be given when I got married. The money was in my name, but it only became available upon marriage. I felt my chest tighten. Why had I never known about this? Stephen's next words hit me like a punch. Your parents knew about it. They've been managing it, poorly. My mind reeled. Mom and Dad, Carol and Robert, had been controlling every part of my life, but now it seemed their reach extended to my inheritance. He continued, his voice heavy with regret. They had been withdrawing funds from the trust, some to cover Shannon's mounting debts, some for personal expenses, vacations, and renovations. They had actively kept me in the dark. The pieces fell into place. Their fight over my wedding, their obsession with Eric's job, the forged signature. It had never been about control alone. It was about money. The betrayal sliced deeper than ever. Carol's cold, cutting words. Robert's silent agreement. Shannon's smug taunts. My parents had not only stolen from me emotionally, but financially. I sank against the wall, my knees weak, the enormity of their deception overwhelming. I called Eric, hands trembling. As I explained everything, the forged signature, the cancelled wedding, the trust fund theft, his calm voice anchored me. We'll make this right, he said firmly. You're not alone. I nodded, feeling both gratitude and rage. I wasn't just hurt. I was done being their pawn. The next morning, I contacted Diane. I know why they did it, I told her, my voice steady now. There's a trust fund worth $250,000. They've been stealing it. Diane's eyes sharpened. Fraud. Lisa. We can sue. We'll demand an audit of the trust and pursue charges for forgery. Fraud. The word sounded right. Final. Carol, Robert, and even Shannon had crossed a line. I wasn't going to let them hide behind the title of family. I spent the next few days compiling evidence. Uncle Stephen helped me track bank statements, withdrawals, and suspicious expenditures. The pattern was undeniable. My parents had diverted the money meant for me, using it to bail out Shannon's failing boutique and maintain their lavish lifestyle. My wedding had been collateral damage, deliberately sabotaged to prevent the trust from being accessed. Each discovery fueled my anger and determination. I remembered Eric's steady presence, his encouragement as I faced the betrayal. He had never judged me, never attempted to control me. He was my partner, my ally, and together, we planned the legal steps to reclaim what was rightfully mine. Finally, armed with evidence and legal support, I felt the first flicker of empowerment I had known in years. They had tried to manipulate, humiliate, and deceive me. They had underestimated my resolve. Diane drafted a lawsuit citing forgery, fraud, and financial manipulation. 2 weeks later, my phone buzzed again. Carol's number flashed. Hesitation gripped me, but against my better judgment, I answered. "Lisa, we need to talk," she began, her voice high-pitched and almost frantic. My pulse quickened. She continued, "The Ivy House won't refund the deposit. $25,000 gone. Can you come to the house? We can fix this." I listened, stunned by the audacity. Fix this? The same woman who had called my wedding a circus, forged my signature, and stolen my inheritance now acted like we were on the same team. Dad's voice interjected from the background, low and urgent. "Tell her we're sorry. We made a mistake." Shannon chimed in, sweet and pleading. "Hey sis, we messed up, okay? Just come back. We'll fix everything." I took a deep breath, anger flaring. "You think saying sorry fixes this? You canceled my wedding without asking. You faked my signature. No. I'm not coming back. Your words mean nothing." Mom gasped, her tone shifting to guilt and control. "We're your family." Shannon echoed, "Come on, don't make this a big deal." Their attempts to guilt me felt hollow. They weren't sorry for me. They were scared I had discovered the truth. Eric entered the room quietly, his hand finding mine. "You okay?" he asked. I shook my head. "They're not sorry. They're scared." But I wasn't intimidated. Their panic, their desperate need to control, only confirmed my suspicions. Their manipulation would no longer hold sway over me. With Diane's guidance, we began building the case, gathering statements from the Ivy House, the caterer, and other vendors. Uncle Stephen's testimony about the trust fund became crucial. Every forged signature, every withdrawal traced back to my parents was documented. The betrayal was tangible, undeniable. The deeper I delved, the more I realized this had always been their pattern, controlling my life under the guise of protection, choosing Shannon over me, prioritizing their image over my happiness. They had stolen my inheritance, attempted to manipulate my future, and for what? To maintain power over me. But the spark of defiance inside me had grown into a blaze. I wasn't going to allow them to continue. I wasn't going to be the obedient daughter who silently endured. Eric stood beside me, steadfast, as I prepared to confront them legally, emotionally, and financially. The fight wasn't just about the money. It was about reclaiming my life, my choices, and my dignity. Months later, the courtroom at last became the stage for the confrontation I had been preparing for. Diane presented the evidence meticulously, bank statements, forged signatures, and Uncle Stephen's testimony about the trust fund. Carol sat rigid, her lips pressed tight, refusing to meet my eyes. Robert fidgeted nervously, stumbling over weak excuses. Shannon slouched beside them, rolling her eyes when the judge questioned her about her boutique's debts, as if it were all a minor misunderstanding. I sat quietly, my stomach a mix of knots and adrenaline, watching the facade of control and superiority they had maintained for years crumble piece by piece. The judge listened carefully, considering each piece of evidence. Finally, the gavel came down, and the words I had longed to hear filled the room. I was awarded the full $250,000 from my grandfather's trust, and Carol, Robert, and Shannon were ordered to pay damages for fraud. Relief and triumph surged through me. They had tried to steal my future, but I had reclaimed it. The Ivy House, once a symbol of betrayal, became the place for my new beginning. On the day of my wedding, the soft lights illuminated the gardens. I stood in my dress, Eric's hand in mine, feeling the weight of years of manipulation finally lift. My cousin Owen laughed nearby, bringing warmth to the evening, and Uncle Stephen's calm presence reminded me of the truth and support that had carried me through this ordeal. None of my immediate family attended. Carol, Robert, and Shannon were absent, their choices having severed the bond between us. Their absence stung, but I had chosen this day for me, surrounded by those who truly valued me. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt, Exactly what Eric and I had envisioned. As we exchanged vows, joy swept through me, pure, untarnished, and liberating. Friends cheered, their faces lit with genuine happiness, a stark contrast to the hollow judgments of my parents. Owen raised a glass, joking about how I had finally found someone capable of keeping up with me. As we danced, a quiet ache lingered, a reminder of the family I had lost and the dreams they had once tried to crush. But the ache was tempered by freedom, by the love and support that surrounded me. Later, I retreated to a quiet corner, laptop open. I had been drafting a final message to my parents, words that carried the cold finality of truth. Carol, Robert, Shannon, you hid my inheritance, lied to me, and tried to control my life. The courtroom revealed who you really are. I am starting over with Eric, free from your manipulation. This is goodbye. Do not contact me. I hit send, the soft click echoing like a seal of liberation. The sadness lingered for a moment, mourning the family I had lost, but it was overshadowed by a newfound joy, the life I had chosen, built on my own terms. Eric's hand rested gently on my shoulder. Everything okay? He asked. I nodded, closing the laptop. It is now, I said, truly meaning it. The night continued with laughter, dancing, and celebration. The Ivy House had transformed from a site of betrayal to a place of beginnings, filled with love and genuine connection. Months passed, and the calls from my parents began again. Carol's voicemail trembled with guilt and desperation, Robert's brief and pleading, and Shannon's sharp but needy messages claimed she needed financial help. But I no longer felt obligation or fear. I responded once, typing calmly, "The circus is already full." Their struggles, the result of their own choices, were no longer my responsibility. Eric and I settled into our home in Richmond, building a life free from the shadows of their control. The trust fund provided a foundation, and I finally pursued my passion, enrolling in a fashion design course. My sketchbook, once hidden beneath layers of secrecy, now lay open on our kitchen table, alive with the designs I had dreamed of creating. Each sketch was a reminder that my life belonged to me. Visits from Uncle Stephen and Owen filled our home with warmth, laughter, and support. They had become my true family, those who loved without manipulation or control. Carol, Robert, and Shannon's absence no longer haunted me. Family was no longer defined by blood. It was defined by love, trust, and loyalty. I found happiness not in their approval, but in the freedom to choose, to create, and to live authentically with Eric by my side. The lessons of betrayal had strengthened me, revealing the value of my own courage and choices. I would continue to fight for my dreams, embrace my passions, and live fully, no longer chained by the demands of a family that had once tried to cage me. The circus they had tried to trap me in was gone. I was free. I was strong. And I was finally completely home.